As Halloween approaches, our thoughts turn to things that creep in the darkness and go bump in the night. Witches, vampires, zombies, and of course, ghosts. All made up things that don't exist and we have nothing to fear, right? Right? Despite their fantastic nature, more than 40% of Americans say that they believe that ghosts are real, with 10% saying that they live in fear of ghosts. Naturally, we have to ask, what does the Catholic Church teach on the subject, and should we be afraid? This is Catholicism in Focus. In one sense, there is not much to talk about by way of Catholic teaching on the subject. Officially, the Church has no definitive doctrine, neither in canon law nor in the Catechism, regarding the existence of ghosts. And when you consider the fact that we have a stance on just about everything else, this is pretty significant. That said, the Church does posit a number of points worth considering as we investigate this disputed question. We begin with Scripture. On the one hand, there are clear examples of the dead speaking with the living in the Bible. In 1 Samuel 28, Saul consults the medium at Endor, and through her speaks directly to Samuel, who had previously died. A similar situation can be seen in 2 Maccabees chapter 15, where Maccabeus has a vision of the former high priest Onias, who guides and encourages him. Add this to the stories of Jesus walking on water and the meeting of the disciples in the upper room, two occasions in which they thought they were seeing a ghost, and it's clear that the people at the time were familiar with the concept and believed that they existed. That said, some theologians have contrasted this with a teaching from the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. When the rich man begs Abraham for help, Abraham responds, "Between us and you, a great chasm is established to prevent anyone from crossing who might wish to go from our side to yours or from your side to ours." Because of this, some theologians like Tertullian and St. Augustine believe that the very notion of ghosts was impossible. The way they reconcile the conflicting stories is simple. The people no doubt experienced something, but it wasn't a dead person communing with the living, it was a demon tricking them. Tertullian writes, "By magic, a secondary form of idolatry, the demons pretend to be a dead man, come to life. Just as in ordinary idolatry, they pass themselves off as gods. Saul never talked with Samuel, Maccabeus never actually saw Onias, and you have never seen your great-grandfather. According to them, it's just a demon in disguise." At least, that has been one approach throughout history, and by the looks of things, a minority opinion. Going back to the early church, the mention of ghosts is actually pretty prevalent. Sightings of ghosts appear in both the Passion of Perpetua and Felicity and the Acts of Paul and Thecla, two early apocryphal works. Works on the saints, such as the Life of St. Martin, claims that some saints encountered evil ghosts and banished them, and even Pope St. Gregory the Great includes several ghost stories in his dialogues. This is not just some medieval or Victorian fascination. Christians have been believing in ghosts for a long time. In fact, St. Thomas himself, for many non-Franciscans the greatest theologian in our history, not only believed in ghosts, he once wrote that it is absurd to say that the souls of the departed do not leave their abode. And all kinds too, not just nice ones. In the supplement to the Summa Theologia, he writes, "According to the disposition of divine providence, separated souls sometimes come forth from their abode and appear to men. It is also credible that this may occur sometimes to the damned, and that for man's instruction and intimidation, they may be permitted to appear to the living." It's because of this that we might conclude that there are three possible reasons for ghosts if we want to go down this rabbit hole. Some come from heaven as saints, providing visions of themselves to intercede for the world and bring words of hope and instruction. As a people with a highly developed understanding of the communion of saints, this shouldn't be hard to accept for us. We might also consider that some disembodied spirits leave the realm of purgatory to seek prayers from the living. This is a little bit more difficult to accept, but entirely possible. If our prayers can reach them, it's not a stretch to believe that their spirits can reach us. And finally, least desirable of all, there is the possibility that the damned, as Thomas refers to those in hell, might roam the earth with the hope of haunting or leading astray. Something that God allows not because he wants us to be harmed, but because their presence may bring us warning and important teaching of what befalls the damned. The reason he was so convinced of these things was because he believed he had two such supernatural encounters in his own life. Once he was visited by the spirit of a fellow Dominican brother prior to him even knowing he was dead, and on the other occasion, he was visited by his deceased sister. Stories like that may confirm what you already believe, or make you roll your eyes and scoff, which is perfectly fine either way, as the Church does not require any particular belief on the subject. It is open to the possibility of such encounters, but does not offer much by way of definitive doctrine. It remains a disputed question. What does not remain a disputed question, however, is how we are to approach these spirits, regardless of whether they exist or not. For one, we are strictly forbidden from seeking contact with them by means of a witch, the occult, Ouija board, possessed television, or Whoopi Goldberg. From the time of the Old Testament until now, the people of God have understood this as gravely contrary to the virtue of faith, as they contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. It may seem harmless, but there is nothing good that can come from Ouija boards, palm readings, so-called psychics, charms, or anything attempting real magic. Don't mess with this stuff. But more importantly, and much more relevantly in this time of Halloween, I think it's important to remember that no matter what you believe in regard to ghosts, there is no reason to be afraid. Evil has no more power over our world than we are willing to give it. And if that's the case, I think the fascination and intrigue about communicating with the dead fades away a bit. You might believe in ghosts and so are attentive to any possible guidances they may offer, either by way of virtue or intimidation, which is a good thing. Or you may not believe in ghosts and go the rest of your life without fear of any unexplained creak in the night, which is also a good thing. In the end, either way, the advice is still the same. Keep your eyes on Christ, believe in the resurrection, and everything's going to be fine.